The room was already buzzing when the laughter cut through it, sharp, cruel, and loud enough to make heads turn. "Is this a joke?" The woman sneered, holding the resume between two fingers like it was something dirty. "Did you print this at a bus stop?" The young black woman standing across from her froze. Every eye in the HR lobby snapped toward them. Phones came out. Whispers followed. The HR head leaned back in her leather chair, scanning the paper again, then looking the girl up and down with open contempt. Her lips curled into a smile that held no humor, only judgment. "Let me guess," she said loudly. "You think because companies are trying to look inclusive these days, we'll just hand you a corporate role?" A ripple of uncomfortable murmurs spread across the room. The girl's hands trembled at her sides. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The HR head laughed again. "I mean, look at this," she continued, waving the resume in the air so everyone could see. "Community college. Part-time work, volunteer projects," she scoffed. "Sweetheart, this isn't ambition, this is charity work." The girl swallowed hard. I meet all the qualifications listed," she said softly, her voice barely carrying over the hum of the room. That was when the HR head stood up. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she stepped closer, invading the girl's space. "Do you know how many real candidates apply for this role?" she snapped. "Graduates from top universities. People with polish, presence, not—" Her eyes dragged slowly from the girl's worn flats to her modest blazer. "This." The silence in the lobby thickened. A man near the coffee station looked down at his cup. A woman by the window pretended to take a call. Someone near the door whispered, "This is messed up," but didn't move. No one intervened. The girl's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. Not yet. "I worked hard for everything on that page," she said, her voice shaking now. "I didn't have advantages. I earned my experience." The HR head tilted her head, mock sympathy dripping from her expression. "Oh, honey," she said, "life isn't about effort, it's about fit, and you—" She tapped the resume against the girl's chest. "You don't fit here." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone raised a phone higher, recording. The girl felt the heat of humiliation crawling up her neck, settling in her cheeks. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure others could hear it. She had known this could happen, she just hadn't expected it to hurt this much. "I'm just asking for a fair review," she whispered. The HR head laughed outright now. "Fair?" She turned to the room. "Everyone hear that? She wants fair." More whispers, a couple of nervous chuckles. "Let me make this easy for you," the HR head said, her voice dropping into something colder. "People like you don't walk into companies like this and demand opportunity. You wait until someone gives you permission." The girl's breath caught. "People like me?" she asked quietly. The HR head smiled. "Don't twist my words," but the damage was already done. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. The girl's vision blurred as tears finally spilled over. She wiped them away quickly, ashamed that they'd escaped. "I just wanted a chance," she said, barely audible. The HR head shrugged. "Then you should have applied somewhere more appropriate." That word hit like a slap. Appropriate. As if her dreams were out of place, as if her presence itself was an inconvenience. She took a step back, chest tight, lungs struggling for air. This was it. This was the moment she would be remembered for, not her intelligence, not her resilience, not her fight, but for standing here being torn apart while strangers watched. And still no one spoke up. Not one. But then, at the back of the room, near the glass wall overlooking the executive corridor, a tall man lowered the newspaper he had been pretending to read. His eyes were fixed on the girl, not with pity, with recognition. His jaw tightened as he took in the scene, the HR head's smug posture, the resume still clutched like a weapon, the young woman standing alone in the center of public humiliation. He folded the paper slowly, very slowly. The girl didn't notice him yet. The HR head didn't either. But something had shifted in the air. And before we go any further, let me ask you something, question of the day. Have you ever been judged, dismissed, or humiliated before anyone even gave you a fair chance, because of how you looked, where you came from, or what someone assumed about you? Tell us your story in the comments, and let us know where you're watching from today, because what happens next will change everything. The HR head scoffed one last time. "Security will escort you out," she said casually, already turning away. "We're done here." The girl closed her eyes, then a calm, steady voice cut through the room. "I don't think you are." Every head turned. The man at the back stepped forward, his presence commanding without a single raised word. The HR head frowned, irritated. "Excuse me, this is an internal matter." He didn't respond to her right away. Instead, he looked at the girl, and when he spoke again, his voice was low, but it carried. "Miss," he said gently, "would you mind telling me your name?" The girl opened her eyes, confused, tears still clinging to her lashes. The room went silent, because something about the way he spoke, the way he stood, the way he knew it hinted at a truth no one else in that room was prepared for. And that truth had already been written on her resume. Let's go back to how this story truly began this morning. The day had begun long before the sun rose. Aisha Monroe woke to the sound of coughing. It came from the other side of the thin bedroom wall, deep, rattling, painful. The kind of cough that didn't just echo through a small apartment, but through your bones. Aisha sat up instantly, her heart already racing. "Mom," she called softly, swinging her legs off the mattress. The floor was cold beneath her bare feet as she crossed the narrow hallway. The apartment was small, 2 rooms, peeling paint, a heater that worked only when it felt like it. But it was home. Every crack in the wall told a story of survival. She pushed open the bedroom door. Her mother, Denise Monroe, lay propped against 2 flattened pillows, one hand clutching her chest, the other gripping a tissue already dotted with red. Aisha froze. "I'm okay," Denise said quickly, forcing a smile through shallow breaths. "It's just morning." Aisha moved to her side, kneeling beside the bed. She gently took the tissue from her mother's hand and replaced it with a fresh one. "Mom, you're not okay," she whispered. Denise reached out and brushed Aisha's cheek with trembling fingers. "You've got that interview today," she said. "Don't be late because of me." Aisha swallowed hard. This was how mornings always went, fear wrapped in routine, worry hidden behind forced smiles. "I'll make you tea," Aisha said, standing. "Then I'll check your meds." Denise didn't respond. She was already coughing again. In the kitchen, Aisha filled the kettle and stared out the cracked window while it heated. Outside, the neighborhood was just waking up. Sirens in the distance. A bus groaning as it stopped on the corner. A man shouting good morning to no one in particular. This was the part of the city most people avoided. Old brick buildings leaned toward each other like tired elders. Laundry lines stretched between balconies. Hope existed here, but it had to fight for space. Aisha had grown up learning how to fight quietly. At 24 years old, she carried more responsibility than most twice her age. Her father had passed when she was 17, heart attack, no warning, no savings. Her mother's health had started declining soon after. Hospital bills replaced birthday cards, prescriptions replaced vacations. College had been a miracle. Aisha had worked 2 jobs while attending community college, cleaning offices at night, tutoring kids on weekends. She graduated with honors, her degree framed in the living room like a promise to the future. But promises didn't pay rent. And they didn't buy medication. Aisha poured hot water into 2 mismatched mugs and carried one back to her mother. Denise smiled weakly as she took a sip. "You look tired," Denise said. Aisha smiled back. "I'm excited." It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. In her bedroom, Aisha stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her blazer. It wasn't new, she'd bought it second-hand, but she'd pressed it carefully, stitched a loose button back on late the night before. She looked at herself closely. Dark brown eyes, tightly coiled hair pulled neatly into a low bun, skin that carried generations of strength and struggle. "You belong," she whispered to her reflection. On the bed lay her resume, clean, crisp, carefully printed. Every word on it represented a sacrifice. Every bullet point told a story of perseverance. She picked it up gently, like it might shatter. This interview wasn't just an opportunity, it was everything. The company Apex Global Solutions was one of the largest consulting firms in the city. Their entry-level analyst role offered benefits, health insurance, stability, medicine for her mother, food without counting dollars, a future that didn't feel like a constant emergency. Denise watched from the doorway as Aisha slipped on her flats. "You're going to do great," she said. Aisha hugged her carefully, afraid of hurting her. "I'll be back soon," she said. "And when I am, we'll celebrate, okay?" Denise nodded, eyes shining. "I believe in you." Aisha grabbed her bag and stepped outside. The morning air was sharp, biting, but she welcomed it. It reminded her she was alive, moving, trying. At the bus stop, she stood with construction workers, nurses, students, people carrying their own battles in silence. She clutched her bag close to her chest, replaying possible interview questions in her mind. "Why do you want to work here? Tell us about a challenge you've overcome. What makes you a good fit?" She had answers. She always had answers. What she didn't have, what she never had, was certainty that someone would listen. As the bus rolled through wealthier neighborhoods, Aisha watched the world change through the window. Buildings grew taller, streets cleaner, people better dressed. She felt the familiar tightening in her chest. "Don't shrink," she told herself. "Don't apologize for being here." When she finally stepped off the bus, the Apex Global building loomed above her. Glass, steel, confidence. She paused on the sidewalk, staring up at it. Somewhere inside that building was a decision that could change her life. She straightened her shoulders, smoothed her blazer. and whispered one last prayer before walking toward the doors. She didn't know it yet, but this morning every step she took was carrying her straight toward judgment and destiny. By the time Aisha reached the corner of 8th and Monroe, her phone buzzed for the third time. She stopped walking. Her heart dropped before she even looked at the screen. Pharmacy alert flashed across the top. She opened it with shaking fingers. Prescription refill denied. Outstanding balance required before release. Aisha closed her eyes. Not today, please not today. She leaned against the brick wall of a closed storefront, the city rushing around her as if nothing had changed. Cars passed. People laughed. Life continued. But hers felt like it was collapsing inward. She scrolled back through her banking app even though she already knew the number. $18.42, that was it. The refill cost $147. Her mother's medication wasn't optional. Without it, the coughing worsened. The dizziness returned. Hospital visits followed, and hospital visits meant bills that never stopped growing. Aisha pressed her forehead against the cold wall, fighting the sting behind her eyes. She had tried everything. She begged the pharmacy for an extension, applied for emergency assistance. Called a charity clinic that told her the wait list was 6 months long. 6 months. Her mother didn't have 6 months. The eviction notice was still folded inside her bag, the red stamp screaming final warning, 2 weeks behind on rent. One more missed payment and they were out. Aisha exhaled slowly, forcing herself to breathe. One thing at a time, she told herself. The interview, if she could just get the job. Her phone rang again. This time it was her mother. Aisha hesitated before answering, pasting a smile into her voice. "Hey, Mom." "Aisha," Denise said softly. "I didn't mean to call, but the coughing's worse." Aisha's stomach twisted. "Did you take the meds?" There was a pause. "No," Denise admitted. "I didn't want to worry you." Aisha squeezed her eyes shut. "Mom," she said, her voice cracking despite her effort, "you have to tell me these things." "I know," Denise said gently. "I just didn't want a day to be heavy for you. This interview means everything." The words felt like a knife, because that was the problem. This interview didn't just mean everything. It was the only thing left. Aisha hung up and stood there for a long moment, watching her breath fog in the cold air. She thought about turning back, about going home, holding her mother's hand, pretending this was just another day they'd somehow survive, but pretending didn't buy medicine. And survival was starting to feel like a privilege they couldn't afford. She straightened, wiping her cheeks. There was one more thing she could do, one last option. Inside Apex Global, beyond the HR lobby, there was an executive wing. And inside that wing was a benefits office, rumored to have discretion, emergency grants, exceptions. She hadn't planned to ask. She hadn't wanted to. Asking meant explaining. Explaining meant being vulnerable. Vulnerability meant being judged. But judgment was a luxury she could no longer fear. Aisha pulled her resume from her bag and looked at it again. This paper wasn't just qualifications, it was proof. Proof that she had done everything right and still ended up here. She felt the weight of her mother's illness, the eviction notice. The empty fridge, the balance on the pharmacy account. The clock was ticking, every second mattered. Aisha squared her shoulders. If she had to beg, she would. If she had to endure looks, whispers, humiliation, she would survive it, for her mother, for the life she refused to give up on. She stepped off the curb and crossed the street toward the towering glass building. With every step, her heart pounded harder, because she knew deep down that whatever waited for her inside would either save her family or break her completely, and there would be no escape either way. The revolving doors of Apex Global Solutions turned slowly, reflecting Aisha's face back at her in fractured pieces. For a brief second, she considered stopping. Just stopping. The lobby beyond the glass looked like another world. Polished marble floors, towering digital displays, employees in tailored suits moving with purpose and confidence. Everything gleamed, everything whispered success. And suddenly Aisha felt every seam in her blazer, every scuff on her flats, every reminder that she didn't come from a place like this. "You belong," she reminded herself again, but fear walked right beside hope now, matching her stride. As she stepped inside, the air changed. It smelled clean. Expensive, like money and certainty. Her footsteps echoed softly on the marble as she approached the reception desk. The receptionist smiled politely, eyes flicking over Aisha with professional neutrality that still felt like assessment. "I'm here for the analyst interview," Aisha said, handing over her name. The receptionist typed quickly. "You'll want to check in with human resources. Down the hall, glass doors on the right." Aisha nodded, thanking her, and followed the direction. The hallway felt longer than it should have. Framed awards lined the walls: Best Workplace, Top Innovator, Diversity Excellence Award. The irony made her chest tight. She passed conference rooms filled with confident voices, laughter, whiteboards covered in ideas, people who seemed so sure they belonged. What if they laugh at me? What if I say the wrong thing? What if they see right through me? Her bag felt heavier with every step. Inside it, the eviction notice pressed against her side like a silent threat. She reached the HR lobby. It was already crowded. Young professionals sat neatly in chairs, resumes in leather folders, phones in hand. Their shoes shined. Their confidence filled the room. Aisha chose a seat near the wall. She folded her hands in her lap to stop them from shaking. Across the room, two candidates whispered to each other, glancing at her briefly before looking away. She couldn't hear what they said, but she felt it anyway. Judgment didn't always need words. A large digital screen flashed, interviews beginning shortly. Aisha inhaled deeply, then exhaled slowly, just like she'd practiced. Her phone buzzed again, a text from her mother. "No matter what happens today, I am proud of you." Aisha smiled through the tightness in her throat. This is for you, she thought. A door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, sharp suit, heels clicking confidently. Her posture radiated authority. This was the HR head. She scanned the room with a practiced glance. "Next," she said curtly. Aisha stood. As she walked toward the desk, she felt every eye on her. The room seemed to quiet like it was holding its breath. She handed over her resume with both hands. The HR head took it without looking up. Then she did. Her eyes moved down the page, once, twice. And then her lips tightened. Aisha felt it instantly, the shift, the temperature drop. She tried to read the woman's expression, searching for something, anything that resembled fairness. Instead, she saw dismissal. The HR head leaned back in her chair. And the moment Aisha had feared all morning began. But before the words came, before the cruelty found its voice, Aisha's fingers brushed the edge of her bag. She felt the folded eviction notice. And for just a second, she thought about walking away, about choosing dignity over desperation. Then she thought of her mother coughing in that dim bedroom, and she stayed, standing at the threshold between fear and hope, unaware that behind a glass wall not far away, someone else was already watching. The HR head didn't invite Aisha to sit. That alone sent a quiet message. She skimmed the resume again, slower this time, as if searching for something to justify what she'd already decided. Her manicured fingernail tapped against the page in a steady, impatient rhythm. She murmured, finally looking up. "Aisha Monroe, is it?" "Yes, ma'am," Aisha replied politely. The HR head tilted her head. "You're aware this is a competitive position, correct?" "Yes," Aisha said. "I reviewed the role requirements carefully, and I believe my skills align." The woman raised a hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Let's go through this," she said, turning the resume so Aisha could see it. "Community college degree." Aisha nodded. "Yes, I graduated with honors while working 2 jobs." The HR head said, unimpressed. "No Ivy League, no private university, no recognizable brand." A few people in the waiting area looked up now. Aisha felt her stomach tighten but kept her voice steady. "I understand that, but the job description emphasized analytical ability and experience, both of which I have." The HR head smiled thinly. "Experience?" She flipped the page. "Office cleaner, tutor, volunteer coordinator." She let out a soft laugh. "Sweetheart, this isn't corporate experience. This is survival work." The words landed hard. Aisha felt heat rush to her face. "With respect," she said carefully, "those roles required time management, responsibility, leadership." "Oh, please," the HR head interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "You're reaching." The whispering started again. A man near the wall shifted uncomfortably. A woman 2 seats away glanced at Aisha, then quickly looked back at her phone. No one spoke. The HR head leaned forward now, elbows on the desk. "Let me ask you something," she said, lowering her voice just enough to sound condescending rather than kind. "Did someone tell you to apply here?" Aisha blinked. "No, I found the listing myself." "Really?" the HR head said, eyebrows lifting. "Because this isn't the kind of place people just stumble into." Aisha straightened. "I didn't stumble," she said quietly. "I prepared, I researched, I met every qualification listed." The HR head's smile vanished. "Qualifications on paper don't mean much," she said sharply. "There's culture, presentation, a certain polish." Her eyes flicked over Aisha again, slow, deliberate. "And that polish," she continued, "comes from exposure, upbringing, environment." Aisha's throat tightened. "I learn quickly," she said. "I adapt. I work harder than most because I've had to." The HR head laughed, loudly. The sound echoed through the lobby, drawing full attention now. "Hard work," she repeated. "That's adorable." Aisha flinched. "Look," the HR head said, standing up again, heels clicking as she moved around the desk. I'm going to save us both some time. This company invests in people who already fit the image, not projects. Projects, the word cut deep. I'm not a project, Aisha said, her voice shaking despite her effort. I'm a qualified candidate asking for a fair review. The HR head stopped directly in front of her, too close. Her smile returned tight, cold. Fair, she said. Fair doesn't mean equal outcomes. It means knowing where you belong. A hush fell over the room. Aisha felt exposed, small, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Where I belong, she repeated softly. Yes, the HR head said, somewhere that matches your background. There it was, the implication hung heavy in the air. Aisha's eyes burned. I belong wherever my skills take me, she said, barely above a whisper, just like anyone else. The HR head scoffed. Confidence is good, delusion is not. A few uncomfortable chuckles followed. Aisha looked around the room. She searched faces for empathy, for outrage, for help. She found none. People looked away, pretended to scroll, pretended not to hear. Silence stood shoulder to shoulder with cruelty. I didn't come here to be humiliated, Aisha said, her voice cracking now. I came for an interview. And you got one, the HR head snapped. And it's over. She turned toward the security desk near the entrance. Can someone escort her out? She called casually, we're done here. The words hit like a physical blow. Aisha's chest tightened so sharply she struggled to breathe. I didn't do anything wrong, she said, tears spilling now despite her best efforts. I just asked for a chance. The HR head didn't even look back. Opportunities are earned, she said over her shoulder. Not demanded. A security guard hesitated, glancing between them. Aisha stood frozen, humiliated, exposed, reduced to a spectacle. She clutched her bag to her chest, feeling the eviction notice inside, the pharmacy alert buzzing silently in her mind. This wasn't just rejection, this was erasure. And the worst part, no one stopped it. Not one person said her name, not one person said enough. As Aisha lowered her head, preparing to leave with what little dignity she had left, she didn't see the man near the glass wall step forward. But the room did. And for the first time since she'd walked into Apex Global Solutions. The power in the room began to shift. Aisha's feet felt rooted to the floor. The security guard had taken one hesitant step forward, then stopped again, unsure. The HR head stood with her back turned now, already reaching for another file, as if Aisha had ceased to exist. The message was clear. You don't matter. Aisha's throat tightened so badly she could barely breathe. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady the pounding of her heart. Tears blurred her vision, streaking the polished marble beneath her feet into meaningless shapes. I'm sorry, she whispered. The word slipped out before she could stop it. Sorry for existing, for hoping, for believing she had earned something more. The apology echoed in the room, soft and broken. The HR head paused, then turned slowly, irritation etched across her face. What are you apologizing for now? She asked. Aisha swallowed hard. Her voice trembled as she tried to speak clearly. I didn't mean to cause a disruption. I'll go. Her words dissolved into a quiet sob. The HR head rolled her eyes. This is exactly the problem, she said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. Too emotional, too fragile. Corporate environments are not therapy sessions. Aisha squeezed her eyes shut. The humiliation sank deeper than any insult before it. She felt stripped bare, exposed in front of strangers who pretended she was invisible. She glanced at the faces around her one last time. A man avoided her gaze completely, staring at the floor. A woman bit her lip, clearly uncomfortable but silent. Someone near the door continued recording, their phone held just high enough to capture every second of her collapse. No one spoke. No one said her name. No one said stop. The silence pressed down on her chest harder than the HR head's words ever could. It told her everything she feared was true, that she was alone, disposable, unworthy of defense. Her hands shook uncontrollably now. I understand, Aisha said, her voice barely audible. I'll leave. She turned slowly, each movement heavy, mechanical. Her legs felt weak, as if they might give out beneath her at any second. As she took her first step toward the exit, her bag slipped from her shoulder and hit the floor. The sound was sharp. Papers spilled out, copies of her resume, handwritten notes, and the folded eviction notice sliding across the marble. Aisha froze. A collective intake of breath moved through the room. She dropped to her knees instantly, scrambling to gather the papers, her hands clumsy and shaking. Tears fell freely now, splashing onto the white pages she had worked so hard to prepare. I'm sorry, she whispered again, over and over. I'm so sorry. The HR head sighed loudly. Can we hurry this up? She said. This is highly unprofessional. Aisha picked up the eviction notice last. She stared at the red lettering for half a second too long. Final warning, her vision blurred completely. For a brief, terrifying moment, she thought she might pass out right there on the floor, humiliated, defeated, erased. This is it, she thought. No job, no medicine, no home. Her mother's face flashed in her mind, tired eyes, forced smiles, coughing through the night. Aisha pressed the papers to her chest and stood on shaking legs. "I didn't mean to waste anyone's time," she said softly, not looking at anyone now. "I really believed I could help here," the HR head scoffed. "Belief doesn't equal belonging." The words followed Aisha like a final blow. She took another step toward the exit. Her shoulders slumped, her head bowed. Every dream she had carried into that building felt suddenly foolish, heavy, out of place. She was done fighting, done hoping, done asking for space in rooms that clearly didn't want her. As she reached the edge of the lobby, one hand already reaching for the door, she stopped. Not because someone touched her, not because someone called her name, but because, for the first time since this nightmare began, the silence broke. A calm, steady voice cut through the room. "That's enough." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The words carried authority so natural, so unquestionable that every movement in the lobby froze. Aisha turned slowly. So did everyone else. And there, stepping forward from near the glass executive corridor, stood a man whose presence shifted the air itself. The storm hadn't ended yet, but calm had just walked into its center. The man stepped fully into the open space of the lobby. He was tall, silver hair neatly combed back, dressed in a simple dark suit that somehow looked more powerful than anything else in the room. No flashy logo, no unnecessary display, just quiet authority earned, not forced. He walked with unhurried confidence, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady. The room had gone completely silent. Aisha stared at him, confused, her heart still pounding, tears clinging to her lashes. She didn't recognize him, but something about the way he looked at her made her chest ache in a new way, not pity, respect. The HR head turned sharply, clearly irritated at being interrupted. "Excuse me," she snapped. "This is a private HR matter." The man stopped a few feet from Aisha. He didn't look at the HR head yet. Instead, he addressed Aisha gently. "Miss," he said, his voice calm and grounded, "are you all right?" The question, so simple, so human, nearly broke her. Aisha swallowed, nodding weakly. "I'm fine," she said automatically. Years of survival had taught her to say that even when she was. The man studied her face for a moment, noticing the trembling hands, the tear-stained cheeks, the papers clutched tightly to her chest. "No," he said quietly. "You're not." The HR head scoffed. "Sir," she said sharply, "this candidate is being escorted out. She's caused enough disruption." The man finally turned to her. His eyes were sharp now, not angry, but piercing, the kind of gaze that didn't raise its voice because it never needed to. "On what grounds?" he asked. The HR head crossed her arms. "She's unqualified and, frankly, emotionally unstable. We don't tolerate scenes like this here." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Aisha felt a surge of panic. She didn't want more attention. She didn't want another person tearing her down. "I'll go," she whispered to the man. "I don't want to cause trouble." He looked back at her, softer again. "You didn't cause anything," he said. "You endured it." Then, without raising his voice, he turned back to the HR head. "I asked you a question," he said. "On what grounds was she dismissed?" The HR head laughed lightly, clearly unimpressed. "With all due respect," she said, "this doesn't concern you. HR decisions are internal." "Internal," the man repeated calmly. "Then explain why half the lobby is watching." The HR head's smile tightened. "She doesn't fit our corporate culture," she said, "and we're allowed to make that judgment." The man nodded slowly, as if absorbing her words. "I see," he said. He gestured gently toward Aisha. "Did she threaten anyone, disrupt operations, break protocol?" "No," the HR head snapped. "But then," he continued evenly, "what exactly justified public humiliation?" The word humiliation sent a ripple through the room. Someone near the back lowered their phone. The HR head's face flushed. "You're exaggerating," she said. "She was informed professionally." Aisha flinched. The man noticed. He took one step closer to the HR head. "Professional," he repeated. "Is laughing at a candidate's background professional?" The HR head opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Is questioning someone's belonging professional?" he continued. "Is calling their life's work a project professional?" Each question landed like a measured blow. The HR head straightened, defensive now. "Sir, I don't know who you think you are, but I've been running HR here for 15 years. "And in those 15 years," the man said calmly, "how many exceptional people did you turn away because they didn't look like what you expected?" The room felt electric. Aisha's breathing slowed slightly, her shock giving way to something unfamiliar. Someone was standing up for her. The HR head scoffed again, but her confidence was cracking. "This is ridiculous," she said. Security, the man raised a single hand. The security guard froze. I think we can pause, the man said quietly. No one is leaving. The HR head stared at him in disbelief. You don't have the authority, he cut her off, not with anger, but with certainty. Oh, he said, I do. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Aisha's heart skipped. The HR head laughed nervously. And who exactly are you supposed to be? The man turned slightly, allowing everyone in the lobby to see him clearly now. My name, he said, voice steady, is William Carter. The name alone caused a stir, a few gasps, a few widened eyes. Aisha didn't recognize it yet, but she felt the shift. The air changed again, heavier now with anticipation. And he continued, his gaze never leaving the HR head. I approved the resume you're holding. Silence crashed down like thunder. The HR head's face drained of color. What? She whispered. William Carter took one step forward. And before you say another word, he added calmly, I suggest you choose it very carefully. Because in the next moment, the truth was about to come out, and nothing in that room would ever be the same again. The silence was absolute. It wasn't the comfortable kind. It was the kind that pressed against eardrums that made people suddenly aware of their own breathing, their own guilt. The HR head stared at William Carter as if the floor beneath her had vanished. You approved it, she said, her voice barely audible now. William Carter nodded once. Yes. A ripple of disbelief moved through the lobby. Whispers burst out uncontrollably. Did he say Carter? As in that Carter? No way, that's the CEO. Aisha felt dizzy. CEO. She looked at the man again, really looked this time. The calm confidence. The way everyone's body language had shifted the moment he spoke his name. The fear that had crept into the HR head's eyes. Her knees weakened. William Carter turned slightly, addressing the room now, his voice still calm but carrying unmistakable authority. For those of you who don't know me, he said, I'm the founder and CEO of Apex Global Solutions. Gasps echoed openly now. The HR head took an involuntary step back. That's not possible, she stammered. You weren't scheduled to be here today. William's gaze sharpened. I don't need a schedule to walk into my own company, he replied. The crowd stood frozen. Aisha's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might burst. She clutched her resume tighter, her fingers numb. William turned back to the HR head. You're holding a resume I personally flagged last night, he said. Do you know why? The HR head shook her head faintly. Because, William continued, I read hundreds of applications every quarter, very few stopped me. He gestured gently toward Aisha. Hers did, Aisha's breath caught. I saw academic excellence achieved without privilege, William said. Leadership earned in environments that break people, and resilience most candidates will never understand. The HR head swallowed hard. You laughed at that, he said. You called it charity work. Her lips trembled. I was assessing cultural alignment. William's tone hardened, not loud, not aggressive, but deadly precise. No, he said, you were enforcing bias. The word struck like a gavel. A few people in the crowd nodded slowly, shame creeping into their expressions. William continued, his voice unwavering. You questioned her belonging, you reduced her life's work to a stereotype, and you did it publicly. He stepped closer. You didn't just fail as an HR head today, he said quietly. You violated everything this company claims to stand for. The HR head's confidence shattered completely. I didn't know who she was, she said desperately. If I'd known you approved her, William's eyes flashed. That, he said sharply, is the problem. The room felt like it was holding its breath. You should not need my name attached to a resume to treat a candidate with dignity, he continued. If respect only exists when power is present, then it isn't respect at all. Aisha felt tears spill again, but these were different. They weren't tears of shame, they were tears of being seen. William turned to her now. Aisha, he said gently, hearing her name from his mouth made her chest ache. I'm sorry, he said, for what you were subjected to in this room. Her lips trembled. I didn't know. You didn't need to, he interrupted kindly. You did nothing wrong. He took the resume from the HR head's limp fingers and handed it back to Aisha himself. You came here seeking opportunity, he said. Instead, you were attacked. The HR head tried to speak again. Mr. Carter, please, this is a misunderstanding. I've served this company loyally for years. William turned slowly back to her. Loyalty without integrity is worthless, he said. The words landed with finality. He glanced toward the security guard. Please escort Ms. Reynolds from the building, he said calmly. The HR head's eyes widened in horror. You can't fire me like this, she said, her voice cracking. Not publicly. William met her gaze. You ended someone else's dignity publicly, he replied. Consider this symmetry. The security guard stepped forward, this time without hesitation. The HR head looked around wildly, searching for support. No one met her eyes. The same silence she had allowed to crush Aisha now wrapped tightly around her. As she was escorted out, the lobby remained frozen, watching the downfall unfold in real time. William waited until the doors closed behind her. Then he turned back to the room. "Let this be clear," he said, his voice resonating. "Apex Global Solutions does not tolerate discrimination masked as culture. Anyone who believes otherwise is free to leave." No one moved. William exhaled slowly, then looked back at Aisha. "Miss Monroe," he said softly, "would you walk with me?" Aisha hesitated, overwhelmed. Every eye followed her as she nodded. She felt like she was floating, detached from her body, from the room, from the nightmare that had just unraveled. As she walked beside him toward the executive corridor, the crowd parted instinctively. Some looked ashamed, some looked inspired, all looked changed. Behind the glass walls, the chaos of the lobby faded. William stopped near a quiet conference room and turned to her. "I want you to know something," he said. "Today was never supposed to go like this." Aisha nodded, struggling to speak. "But," he continued, "sometimes truth needs to be exposed." He offered her a seat. She sat, and for the first time since stepping into that building, she felt safe. The storm had broken, the truth had been revealed, and justice had only just begun. The conference room was quiet in a way that felt unreal after the chaos outside. Soft light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city moved below them, distant and indifferent, while inside this glass-walled space, Aisha sat gripping her resume like it might vanish if she let go. William Carter poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal pitcher and slid one toward her. "Take your time," he said gently. "You don't have to say anything yet." Aisha nodded, her hands trembling as she wrapped her fingers around the glass. She took a small sip, then another, grounding herself in the simple act. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, the words spilling out. "I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I just needed—" William raised his hand softly. "Please don't apologize," he said. "Not here, not for this." She pressed her lips together, tears pooling again. I've never been talked to like that," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not so openly, not with people watching." William leaned back slightly, giving her space. "That kind of humiliation leaves a mark," he said. "Even on the strongest people." Aisha let out a shaky breath. "I thought I was prepared," she said. "I knew it might be hard, I just didn't think," she trailed off, shaking her head. "I didn't think my life would be laughed at." William's jaw tightened. "That won't be ignored," he said firmly. He picked up a tablet from the table and tapped the screen. Moments later, the door opened and a woman stepped inside, mid-30s, calm, professional. "This is Laura Kim," William said. "Our chief legal and ethics officer." Laura smiled warmly at Aisha. "I'm very sorry for what you experienced," she said. "And I want you to know this is being handled fully and formally." Aisha blinked. "Handled how?" Laura folded her hands. "Ms. Reynolds' termination is effective immediately. Her conduct violated company policy, federal employment law, and ethical standards. There will be a full internal review, and her actions today will follow her professionally." Aisha's heart skipped. "She won't be able to do this to anyone else?" she asked quietly. Laura shook her head. "Not here and not without consequences elsewhere." Aisha closed her eyes for a brief moment. She hadn't come here for revenge, but knowing the harm would stop, knowing someone else wouldn't be broken the same way, felt like air returning to her lungs. Laura continued gently. "Additionally, we've preserved all lobby footage and witness statements. Should you choose to pursue legal action, the company will support you fully." Aisha's eyes widened. "Support me?" William nodded. "Yes, including legal representation if you want it." She shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. "I don't want to fight," she said. "I just wanted a job." William's expression softened. "And you still deserve one," he said. Laura excused herself quietly, leaving them alone again. William leaned forward slightly. "Aisha, I want to be very clear," he said. "Your resume wasn't approved out of sympathy. It was approved because you earned it." Her throat tightened. "I started this company with nothing but a borrowed desk and a second-hand laptop," he continued. "I recognize resilience when I see it, and I recognize leadership, especially when it grows in difficult soil." Aisha stared at him, disbelief etched across her face. "You still want me here?" she asked. "I want you here," William said without hesitation, "if you still want to be." Tears slipped down her cheeks again, but this time she didn't wipe them away. "Yes," she whispered. "More than anything," William smiled. "Then let's talk about what comes next." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer letter. Aisha's hands shook as she opened it. Full-time analyst position, comprehensive health insurance, effective immediately, salary that made her breath hitch, signing bonus, her vision blurred. This can't be real, she said, her voice breaking. My mom, she's sick. I can't even afford her medication right now. William nodded as if he'd expected this. The benefits package includes immediate medical coverage, he said. But beyond that, he paused, choosing his words carefully. I'd like to personally cover your mother's current medical expenses, he said, until she's stable. Aisha gasped softly. I can't accept that, she said instinctively. That's too much. William met her gaze. It's not charity, he said. It's compassion, and it's my choice. Her shoulders collapsed inward as a sob escaped her chest, deep, raw, unstoppable. For the first time in years, the weight she'd been carrying cracked. I didn't know how I was going to get her medicine tonight, she cried. I didn't know where we were going to live next month. William waited, letting her release everything she'd been holding in. You won't lose your home, he said gently when she could breathe again. We'll also arrange temporary housing assistance while you get settled, no eviction, no more emergencies. Aisha covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head. Why? She asked through tears. Why help me like this? William's answer was simple. Because talent deserves opportunity, he said, and humanity demands kindness. He stood and extended his hand. Welcome to Apex Global Solutions, Aisha Monroe. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady, and took his hand. The handshake wasn't just professional, it was life-altering. As they walked back into the lobby together, the atmosphere had changed completely. People stood when they saw them, some clapped quietly, some looked ashamed. Some smiled with genuine relief. Aisha felt every step differently now. She wasn't invisible, she wasn't out of place, she was seen. And as she stepped back into the sunlight later that afternoon, phone pressed to her ear, telling her mother through tears that everything had changed, she finally believed it, not just for today, but for the rest of her life. 3 years later. Morning sunlight poured through wide windows, spilling across hardwood floors and framed photographs that told a very different story than the one that had begun in a cramped apartment with peeling paint. Aisha Monroe stood in her kitchen, tying her hair back as the kettle whistled softly. The apartment was modest but beautiful, clean lines, warm colors, a quiet sense of peace that had once felt unimaginable. In the next room, her mother laughed. It was a sound Aisha never took for granted. Denise Monroe sat comfortably on the couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, her color healthy, her breathing steady. A stack of medical reports sat neatly on the coffee table, most of them stamped recovering or stable. You're going to be late, Denise teased. Again. Aisha smiled, pouring tea into 2 mugs. Some habits never change. She carried the mug over and kissed her mother's forehead. How are you feeling today? Denise took a sip, her eyes shining. Grateful, she said simply. Every single day. Aisha's chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with gratitude. After that day at Apex Global Solutions, life hadn't magically become perfect overnight. There were still long hours, steep learning curves, moments of self-doubt, but there was also security, health insurance that meant no more choosing between medicine and rent, a steady paycheck, a workplace that valued her voice, and mentors, real ones. William Carter had kept his word. He hadn't hovered or patronized her. Instead, he challenged her, pushed her, listened. Aisha thrived. Her analytical skills stood out quickly. Her ability to lead under pressure, honed by years of survival, made her indispensable. Within a year, she was promoted. By the second she was leading projects others twice her age struggled to manage, but what mattered most wasn't the title. It was what she did with it. Aisha never forgot that lobby, the silence, the humiliation, the way one voice had changed everything. That was why, on this particular morning, she slipped on her blazer and pinned a small silver badge to her lapel. Apex Opportunity Initiative. The program was her idea. With William's support, Aisha had helped create a paid internship and mentorship pipeline specifically for candidates from underrepresented and low-income backgrounds. Not as charity, but as investment, because talent was everywhere. Opportunity was not. That afternoon, Aisha stood in a bright conference room filled with nervous young faces, students clutching resumes, eyes full of hope and fear in equal measure. She recognized herself in them. I know what it feels like to walk into a room like this, she told them, her voice steady. To wonder if you belong before anyone even speaks to you. A few heads nodded. I'm here to tell you something, she continued. You do belong, not because someone allows it, but because you earned it. In the back of the room, William Carter watched quietly, pride softening his usually composed expression. She had become exactly what the company needed. Exactly what the world needed. That evening, Aisha returned home to her mother to a dinner table filled with warmth instead of worry. They talked about small things, neighbors, plans, dreams that now felt safe to speak out loud. Later, as the city lights blinked on outside her window, Aisha stood alone for a moment, holding her old resume. The paper was slightly worn now, but she kept it, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that dignity survives humiliation, proof that resilience outlasts cruelty, proof that one moment of courage, one person willing to speak, can rewrite an entire future. Somewhere out there, another young woman was preparing for an interview. Another dream was standing on shaky legs, hoping not to be dismissed. Aisha hoped her story would reach her. Because this was the truth she wished someone had told her sooner. You are not invisible, you are not out of place, and your worth is not decided by someone else's prejudice. Moral, true power is not found in titles or authority, but in how we treat those who have none. Compassion doesn't just change moments, it changes lives. And when we choose humanity over judgment, we create a future where everyone has a chance to rise. If this story moved you, please like this video to help it reach more people. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful, inspirational stories that remind us who we can be when we choose kindness.